Yes.
You said just now about the US dollars impact to what sort of solutions are you looking at with the manufacturers if the oil price continues?
You know the issues of number one, the issues of crude oil. Yeah. This verbatim. Look, we are no oil and gas expert. Yeah, you know. So this our analysis on what we see how the crude oil could have an impact on Malaysia. Generally, people say that because Malaysia is a oil producing country, so it will impact Malaysia. But if you go deep down into what constitutes of oil and gas in Malaysia, you realize that there are two components. One is oil, one is gas. Okay, and if you look into the performance of what we export gas more than anything else. Majority of our oil and gas is actually gas. The resource, the one thing is the revenue is more from gas than from oil. Now, and I think you also know that gas is based on a contractual price. You know that, right? Gas doesn't change, you know. Gas is contractual price. So it remains the same price no matter really, you know, whether your forex is up and down. Especially it is based on US dollars. So actually, there's more money in terms of ringgit Malaysia you know, because it is contractual price. You know. So, but then truly enough that the crude oil it will have an impact, but the revenue from crude oil, as I said, is not as much as gas, and this revenue may be compensated by the fuel subsidy rationalization. You know, now there's already rationalization of fuel. Government is not paying so much of subsidy for fuel, you know, so there's lower income in terms of fuel, but at the same time, government is not paying, you know, so much of fuel subsidy. So there is a balance, you know, in terms of lower revenue on oil and in terms of lower subsidy on oil. So what I'm saying to say is there is kind of a balance, you know, and don't forget again, gas is the major revenue, and gas is based on contractual price, and there is no change so to speak. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that's why this first 6 months of this year is very important. You know, if situation improve post 6 months, July onwards, we think that we should be able to withstand, you know, whatever is going on in the first 6 months, and you know, then go back to normal after 6 months. But nevertheless, that's why you know, that committee is very important, because things could move more than 6 months, you know. So that's why we need to figure out what needs to be done if really the prices keeps on reducing, you know, and we know that the appreciation. Now back to your question, I know this is a bit long winding. Back to your question, the appreciation of the US dollars is partly due to the price, the price of oil itself. You know, but then there's another thing that I would like to also inform to everybody. It's not about Malaysia, ringgit Malaysia depreciating. It's about the US dollars appreciating against all major currencies. So actually everybody is feeling the impact. Now, in the auto industry and some of the mechanisms that we are thinking, I'll give you an example. This is one example. You know that we are moving ahead and going to do a lot of trading with China. Yeah. So in the automotive industry, so some of the major OEMs from China are coming in. You know, we are reviewing, evaluating. One of them is Go Auto with Great Wall, and this is already public knowledge. You know, so one of the remedies that have been done immediately is instead of trading in US dollars, do it in RMB. But this needs consensus between both parties. So some of the companies are already moving towards it. So if you trade in other currency which are less fluctuating, you know, between ringgit and RMB, you know, that can be one of the mechanisms. Okay, so that's one of the mechanisms. Something that I can share, something that we have started doing with some of the Chinese counterparts. Okay, others will see you know, yen also, for example, we are appreciating against yen. You know, but even though we trade with Japan, some of the trading is still done in US dollars. Surprisingly, you know, but this is what happening, you know, and but you know that yen is not appreciating so much compared to the US against ringgit Malaysia. Actually, ringgit Malaysia at one point in time we were appreciating against yen. You know, so if you talk really from forex standpoint, I think there need to be more flexibility in terms of what currency to use so that we can mitigate the problem. I mean, now we use one currency and this currency fluctuate and there we go. I think we need to have more flexibility in terms of the currency that we use for our trading. Yes. Six, 665. Am I confident? Yes, we are confident with the 700,000. What are the factors that lead to this 700,000? Many people say that GST is a detrimental thing to the TIV. Even last year already, some quarters are saying, "Hey, Madani, don't talk so much about GST. You are, people won't buy cars." But the fact that people still buy cars, the TIV still increase. Of course, last year I know that we have projected 670, right? 670, MAA also forecasted 670, but we got 665. But the 5,000 is basically because of some delays in terms of some models being launched and some operational issues and so on. If it's not for some of these delays and operational issues, we would have actually achieved higher than 670,000. That's number one. So about GST, so GST to us is more than a perception than anything else. That's why we want to make it clear to the consumer that you wait for GST, you'll get a minimum reduction, which is 1 to 2%, which is rather minimum. But then if you want to trade in your car as second hand, your car depreciates more than 1 to 2%. So why wait to get 1 to 2%, and by then your car depreciates even more than 1 to 2%. Okay, so that's number one. Okay. Now, number two, I know talks has been there that public transportation will improve in Malaysia. Yes, and to us it is a good thing, and we should be using more public transportation rather than driving by ourselves. Unless 4 or 5 guys in a car, then that's okay lah. If it's just one person in a car, I think if there's public transportation, I would opt for public transportation. And the MRT 2 and all the different phases, it's not going to come in this year. It's not 2015, right? It's 17, 16 onwards. So it's not 2015. So public transportation, it is under development. It is not something that we can use. Anyone can use immediately this year. So therefore, people still need to have a vehicle to move from point A to point B. Thirdly, Malaysia context is quite I would say, well, not really different, but in many developing countries like Malaysia, in Indonesia, for instance, there are many new people, new workers or new employees. Employment. Employment is being provided. GDP Malaysia 2015 is forecasted to be around 5.5%, something of that nature. So the employment opportunity in Malaysia is still good. There's still a lot of employment in Malaysia in the year 2015, and all these industries, automotive, for example, let me tell you, in Shah Alam, in Rawang, in Pekan, in up north in Gurun, there's no public transportation. People to work there, you need to buy cars. So there is still a lot of employment opportunities in Malaysia in the year 2015, and these new engineers, new technicians, they would be in need of a new car, and that is the trend. People buy, the moment they can afford to buy a car, they buy car for more comfort, safety reason. They buy car, and And this is being encouraged, I would say, by the OEM because they are producing cars that are very now fuel efficient, and many of the cars have reduced their prices, making it even more affordable, you know, even to a new worker. Yeah. So especially we talk about the Asia model and the soon other models that are going to be launched, you know, are really things that are below 40,000, 35,000, 45,000, you know, the sort of prices, something that can offer, I mean, it offers more affordability, you know, to new buyers. So in general terms, I would say the stability of Malaysian economy, you know, is one of the factors that push further this growth of TIV from 665 to 700,000 this year. And again, furthermore, if we could get this customer incentive scheme to be viable, you know, that can really push the TIV above the 700,000 units. Yeah.